Welcome back to Wyandot Lake and a much too long delayed episode 15 of our Planet Coaster 2 water park. I apologize for the long delay between the last two videos. I've been absolutely slammed these past few weeks as I just completed moving halfway across the country. And if you've never moved before, let me just tell you, it takes way more time, way more effort, and way more work than you think it will. But the good news is that while I have not been able to record any audio or edit any videos, I have been playing the game, so I do have a good amount of footage that I can go through and also have written the scripts for all the videos that I do have put together and edited already. So I should be able to get audio recorded for all those, hopefully in one night, either one night, 2 nights, but we'll get those done. So we'll be able to get videos out consistently here. You also might notice that the audio sounds different. That is because I have a recording mic now that I went ahead and got off Amazon. So I'm using that instead of my gaming headset. Let me know if you think it sounds better. It certainly should. The settings, I'm sure, will need some tweaking, but we can kind of deal with that as we go. Enough about the past and everything, though. Let's get into talking about today. And we are going to work more on our boardwalk section of the park, focusing on our mat slide racers, which I believe, are going to name as well today. And we're going to spend a little bit of time as well working on the back area of the boardwalk and the area kind of around the mat racers as well. First thing we're going to do today, though, that we've been kind of doing the last couple minutes here, is working on these cabanas. And I've talked about this before, but I really do wish that they would add in a way to have cabanas and upcharge seating areas where guests have to pay to use them. When you think about, I think, resorts a lot of times, and I think some water parks as well. I kind of remember going to some water parks and seeing this. They have these little cabanas that you can kind of rent for your family. They're a little more private, a little more reserved. And so that's kind of what we're going for here. It'd be really cool if we could get them as kind of a way that guests would actually have to pay for them. So maybe someday, but for right now, anyone can use them. And so we went ahead and we placed them kind of all next to each other here. You can see we're doing the coloring here. And I think we may actually change the coloring one more time, but it does come out really well with we change it. But we're going to go ahead and place all these right next to each other. And I went ahead and I used the resort canopy. It's a really versatile piece. We've used it a ton throughout the park. We'll continue to use it a ton. But what we did is we basically just moved all these over. And it took a little bit of playing around, as you'll see, because I couldn't get the pathing to really work just right. And what we end up doing, and you'll see here in a second, we end up just basically creating a flat pad, and then we'll eventually put a little fence, the little barrier that's in the game underneath that. But each area within the park is going to have some kind of cabana. I almost said canopy. I was looking at the canopies there. It's going to have some kind of cabana with it. And I just really think it adds to each area. And for right now, they're all going to kind of be this individual sized cabana. And here you can see where we end up doing just kind of the barriers and everything. But they're all going to kind of be this individual 2-person cabanas. We may come back in eventually and maybe change that up a little bit, make a 4-person, 8-person kind of, larger family, larger group space that they can rent out. I also think maybe even some birthday spaces might be in store for the park at some point. So that would be something that would be really kind of cool, but we can certainly expand on this at some point. But we're going to jump over now to the mat racers. and build our mat racer kind of cover, not slide platform cover. Not station platform. I almost said station platform. It's really more of a platform cover. And I was in San Francisco a little over a year ago, and I was walking the pier there. I don't remember the name of it, but I really kind of liked the kind of industrial, kind of classic look that some of the buildings along the waterfront there had, kind of that warehouse look. And so what we did here is we tried to duplicate that. And this is the first I've really ever used custom supports, whether it be in this Planet Coaster or the original Planet Coaster. And so it's okay. It certainly isn't the best. For the basis I have, the build basis I have, it's fine. Would certainly like to come back to this and edit it later. I do think it ends up working. So you're going to have to bear with me for a couple episodes, and you really won't see it after this episode until we kind of come back and finish up the entire area. But it's going to look a little industrial, at least for right now. But when we come back to this, it will really kind of match up pretty well. But we can always also redo it, need be, come time to redo an area or maybe refresh a ride. So that's something we can always do. We also spent a little bit of time, you saw there a second ago, redoing the queue line. Looking at the slides in the game, since the game's been released, I didn't realize this when I put this in. People do actually stand on the staircase, which is super cool. I was kind of worried that that wasn't going to be something they did. And in the park I had been working on in the original Planet Coaster before kind of coming over to this one, I had a lot of guests that would overflow queue, and I didn't want to have that happen. And so that's why the queue was so long. But we kind of come in here and we adjust that, change that a little bit, make it just a little bit smaller. So it's a shorter platform, so we do need a little bit of a queue, but we shorten it, and I think we may even shorten it even more from what you see here. So going on to the name, because that's what we're doing now here, is we are going to call this Sand Dune Racers. When I look at the slide and how it kind of goes down and pauses and whatnot, it reminds me of a sand dune. And so I really think it's the perfect name. We're going to give it kind of this tan, sand, beach kind of color palette, which is really going to kind of add to that with the mat of the idea that you're sliding down sand into water, which is going to be just something that I think is going to be really cool. Something to think about kind of in the real world with the color scheme here is they're kind of a more brighter faded color. And one of the things that we'll do is that will help with anti-fading. Obviously, fading isn't something that we really have to worry about in-game, but will really enhance that kind of in real life as we're playing this kind of as if this were a real park. I had the option to stripe it down, but decided not to, decided to kind of go with that solid color that you saw there. Let me know what you think of that as well. We also went ahead and put in our sign. I will admit I've never been the best at making signs. I do think this does end up turning out really well. The surfboard sign, or I should say the surfboard look that we put in here, and I think we maybe even end up kind of tilting it a little bit, give it a little bit of an angle to it. Just looks really good. Matches up fairly well. I think it would be better if there was like a replica of the actual mat they were sliding down or something. Maybe a little fiberglass sand dune that it was on that kind of replicated the slide, something like that. But for what we ended up putting in, it actually looks pretty good. It's very basic. Signage is something that as I play the game more, I will certainly get better at. And as that happens and we kind of revitalize areas as part of kind of capital projects, smaller projects year to year within the park, I'm sure that we will come back to that as well. So we are going to place down more power generators, and we'll also place down some more power or not power, water, uh, water wells, water transports, whatever they are called in the game. And the reason is I really wish water rides and pools required power just like rides. In real life, they need them. And so it doesn't really make sense to me that they don't. And so we're going to play the game as if they do. We're going to put those power units in, and every pool is going to have, or every pool and slide, I should say, is going to have a dedicated water unit. And we're going to have power units, probably 3 or 4 stores per power unit. And I would say every single attraction needs its own power unit. If not every attraction, every 2 attractions at the most. So you're going to see us putting a few more of those in. It ends up looking fine, looks great, but you're going to see a little more of that. So this area here that we are kind of putting these flowers in, I don't remember if we put the little curb in here as well. I'm not sold on. I think it looks fine. I'm not sure. I end up putting in kind of this like wood curb, but it's really kind of more of a 2x4 board. And so it just really looks thin and out of place. But if you have any ideas for how we can kind of spring this up, breathe a little more life into here, like just looking at this now, that little corner we were just working on there is probably the perfect place for some signage, right? You can direct people over towards our big slide complex that we built, or kind of direct them back to the path. So that maybe is a place where we do that. Now, we are also going to work on putting in some lighting here. And so this is probably my biggest gripe with the game. And I feel like there's very limited lighting options. I think we need a couple things. One, an ability to toggle the brightness of the lights. I think some of the lights are way too bright and other of the lights are way too dark. And so if we had a way to kind of toggle that, that would be ideal. But also some generic lights. And here you can see that 2x4 that we're putting in. I also will say, I put this in before you could disable curbs. And this is one of those things I think now with curbs being disabled, or at least being able to disable curbs, we can kind of come back to, and maybe we change that. And we end up going with this even thinner board. I think the bigger board, looking at it, works better. Let me know what you think, though. If you don't like it, what would you put there instead? Because I definitely think there probably needs to be something else. When I did this, I had originally been thinking I was going to have all the curbs look like this. Ended up being the only curb that looked like that. So it's what it is. Moving back into lighting, though, because we're going to go ahead in about 2 seconds and get into lighting. We are going to frame this pool here with some lighting. And the thought is this is going to be more of a chill pool. It's going to be much more of an adult pool. And so we went with these kind of string lights that just kind of, I think, give a little more of like a relaxed, a little more mature look around here. And we end up boxing in the area, which we'll get to here in a couple minutes, with some furniture and everything. And it just kind of gives a little more privacy, makes it a little more tranquil. And in my head, I kind of have this idea that it's an adult-only area, right? It's an 18-plus pool, kind of somewhere you can go without children and, young families and all that. Not that that's not great, but sometimes you just want a little chill area. And in my head also, when I had kind of been thinking through this area right there, kind of where that netting is, I had kind of had this idea of having kind of almost like a swim-up bar. That's something that's become very popular at vacation destinations, resorts, and I think would just look really cool, would be perfect here. Obviously, there's not a way to do that in-game. That may be something where down the road we come back to and we simulate it in some way. But either way, it still kind of lends credence to this idea of this kind of being a more mature, more adult-looking pool. Altogether, though, the lighting ends up looking really cool at night, both from the perspective of walking down the midway, as well as being in the water in this area and being in the midway. And when I talked earlier about kind of my gripes with the lighting in the game, this is one of those areas because I've talked in past episodes about, it's really important to make sure that the pool is lit up because that is a safety issue at the end of the day. And obviously there is lights underneath the water, but that shows you underneath the water. And as a lifeguard, you need to be able to see surface level. And so I wish that like these lights, especially, were a little bit brighter because I think they can be kind of dim, especially right underneath them compared to what they should be. But it would also be really nice if it gave that opportunity to light up the space even more. And so that is certainly an area that would love to see that in the game. On top of being able to do some kind of swim up food or drink area. So knocking on wood that maybe some point down the road we're getting some updates to the water park that include those things. I know we spent a lot of time on the dry park with the updates that Frontier has released. So we'll see what happens. This area, though, that we're working on now, we're going to put some chairs down and we're going to make this little seating area here. And I said we're going to kind of build some furniture, make this kind of real, kind of like a very, very private, kind of reserved area that's going to kind of give this idea that maybe it's a little more of a mature pool. And that is what this area ends up being. So what we're doing now is we end up moving this back and we actually get rid of our path here. And what we are going to do is we are going to put in some planters here. And those planters are going to provide a dual purpose. First, and probably the most important, is they're going to provide shade for our guests in these chairs and on the midway behind it. Why is that important? Well, because you don't want your guests to get burned, right? Burned guests are unhappy guests. Unhappy guests spend less money in the park. Less money spent in the park, less money you have for capital investments into the park in the future. But also, it's going to help add some privacy into this area. And that's what I was saying when it really kind of pulls everything together. And it also gives some seating that is on the main path. You're not removed from everything, but you have a little bit of privacy. The people walking by you have that barrier, so it's going to be a little bit quieter. It's going to be a little bit calmer. You're not going to have to deal with yelling as much. And you'll certainly still hear, right? It's not a fully enclosed, full wall that's going to block 100% of the noise, but it's going to give it that little bit of a nicer feel. And so that's what we went with here. It ends up looking just really, really pretty, especially when we get these plants in here. We end up kind of going some different levels with them, some taller plants, some kind of medium ones, put a couple rocks in there, and just works out really well. The only thing that I'm really not thrilled about with this area is the seat colors. And you can see here, this is when I talked about kind of giving a little more privacy. That's what these bushes are. So that is going to help block some of the noise and help lend some privacy to those people that are back there. And it just looks very pretty. We don't have a name for this pool yet. So if you have any ideas for a name for this pool, drop it below because this is the perfect place. We can maybe put a sign there that says kind of what this pool is, or maybe, a 18 plus sign or something like that, 21 plus, whatever we decide. Maybe we put some kind of wall, some kind of barrier as well along the pathway outside the pool. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. But back to kind of the only thing I don't like, and you can see just how incredible this looks at night, is the looks of the chairs. Trying to kind of keep with the idea of kind of the pastel color for this area. That's kind of a really big theme. And you can see us putting them in here. But that's kind of a big theme, right? It's going to help stop the fading, which is going to save the park money in the short and long term. But it also is just kind of the color palette. But just while it works really well everywhere else, I just felt like with this area, it maybe didn't fit super well. So if you have kind of any better ideas for color palettes, let me know. Definitely want to maybe come back to that. That's definitely an area that I think we can put some revision into down the road. But we're working on a new sign here for our entrance. Unfortunately, this is the only video you're going to see of that because I don't have the video for the rest of it. It unfortunately got deleted, but in the next episode, you will see the finished product, as well as working on what probably is my favorite area of the park. And that's going to be our runoff area for our massive slide complex. So between the look of the whole area, as well as the walkway to it, and even the food location under the start of it, the entire stretch of the park we're going to work on tomorrow just comes out absolutely incredible. If you're still here, thank you for putting up with me. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like, comment below, let me know what you think, and we will see you in the next video.